house was warm, filled with the sweet scent of vanilla and freshly baked cake. Fairy lights twinkling along the wall, casting a soft glow over the romantic dinner Ryan had spent hours preparing. A smile tugged at her lips as she adjusted the table setting, smoothing the silk napkin beside Jungkook's plate. Tonight was special, their third wedding anniversary. She had been counting down the days, excited to finally have a moment with him. Just the two of them. Lately, Jungkook had been distant, coming home late, brushing off conversation with tired excuses. But she told herself it was just work stress. He would never hurt her. Glancing at the clock, Ryan's heart pounded with anticipation. 7 p.m. We should be here any minute. But an hour passed, then 2. She sent him a message. Jungkook, are you on your way? I made dinner for us. No reply. By midnight, Ryan sat curled on the couch, her hands clutching her phone, her eyes flickered toward the untouched meal. The candle that had long since melted down, their wax pulling into the table. Where are you? 2 a.m. She called. No answer. Her heart clenched with fear. Was he okay? Did something happen? By 4 a.m., the front door cracked open. Ryan jumped up, her breath hitching. In relief. Jungkook, you're home? He barely looked at her, rubbing his forehead. Why are you still awake? I was waiting for you. Her voice wavered. It's our anniversary, Jungkook. I planned everything. Can we not do this right now? He muttered, walking past her. Ryan's stomach dropped. The faint scent of perfume, not hers, clung to his clothes. She swallowed hard. Where were you? Jungkook sighed, running a hand through his messy hair. I was out. Work ran late. With who? Jesus, Ryan, he snapped, turning to face her. Why do you always need to question me? Can't you just let me breathe? Her throat tightened. I am not questioning you. I am your wife, Jungkook. I deserve to know where you have been all night. His jaw clenched, frustration flashing in his eyes. I am tired. Just drop it, okay? He didn't even look at her. Didn't care about the effort she had put into their night. Didn't care about her. As he walked away, Ryan stood frozen, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. The cake sat untouched on the counter. The candles had melted down, and so had the love she thought they shared. Despite the aching pain in her chest, Ryan still packed Jungkook lunch the next morning. Maybe if she surprised him at work, they could talk. Maybe she could fix this. Her hands clutched the neatly wrapped lunchbox as she entered the company building, a hopeful smile tugging at her lips. But then she heard the whisper, Did you see them last night? Boss and his secretary were all over with each other. Yeah, he didn't even go home. Poor wife. She has no idea, does she? Ryan's heart pounded against her ribs. No, that's not possible. Her legs carried her forward past the murmuring employees until she stood outside Jungkook's office. Hands trembling, she pushed open the door and her world collapsed. Jungkook was pressed against his desk, his lips devouring his secretary, his hands gripping her waist as if she was the most precious thing in the world. The woman's blouse was undone, her hands tangled in his hair. Ryan felt like she couldn't breathe. The lunchbox slipped from her hands, crashing into the floor. The sound jolted them apart. Jungkook's head snapped towards her, his face paling. Ryan? The secretary gasped, quickly fixing her blouse, but Ryan wasn't looking at her. She was looking at him, at the man she had built her life around, at the man who had just shattered everything. You didn't come home, she whispered, her voice cracking, because you were here. Jungkook clenched his jaw, stepping forward. Ryan, let me explain. Explain? She let out a bitter laugh, tears spilling down her face. There is nothing to explain, Jungkook. I see everything perfectly now. He opened his mouth, but no words came out, because there was nothing he could say. With shaking hands, Mayan wiped her tears. I was waiting for you, she choked. I made you a dinner. I decorated. I baked a damn cake, Jungkook. And you? Her voice broke. You were here with her. Jungkook looked away, guilt darkening his feature, but guilt wasn't enough. Nothing was enough anymore. Happy anniversary, she whispered before turning and walking away. This time for good. The divorce was swift. Wine walked away with nothing but her dignity and the pain he had left behind. She spent months in darkness, unable to sleep, unable to eat. The love she had for Jungkook had consumed her, and now that it was gone, she felt hollow. But pain had a way of turning into strength. She poured herself into her passion, baking. What was once a hobby became her lifeline, and for years of hard work, she opened her own bakery, Sweet Heaven. Her hands, once used to hold Jungkook, now creating a delicate pastries. Her heart, once broken, now found joy in little things: the smell of warm bread, the laughter of customers, the satisfactions of creating something beautiful. She was happy, independent, and free. And Jungkook was miserable. His world, once filled with success and luxury, now felt empty. The secretary had thrown his marriage away for. She had left within a month. His cold, empty penthouse was not. Every night he drowned himself in whiskey, staring at the divorce papers. Every morning he drove past Sweet Heaven, watching Wyan through the glass window. She was smiling, laughing, radiant, and he was nothing. Jungkook never stepped inside. He knew he didn't deserve to. So he watched from afar, finding comfort in the only thing that still brought him peace. Her happiness, even if it no longer belonged to him. Wyan had noticed him weeks ago. At first she thought she was imagining things, but every morning without fail, Jungkook would be there, standing across the street, his gaze lingering on her. He never approached, never spoke, just watched. And for the longest time, she didn't know how to feel about it. She had spent months trying to heal from the pain he had caused her. She had built herself back up, piece by piece, and yet a part of her still ached when she saw him. Not because she still loved him, but because she once had. And so one evening, after closing the bakery, she made a decision. She walked outside, crossing the street until she stood right in front of him. Jungkook stiffened, his breath hitching as their eyes met. Wyan, he whispered, guilt heavy in his voice. She studied him for a moment. He looked tired, shadow under his eyes, shoulders slumped. He wasn't the confident man she had once known. You have been watching me for a week, she said softly. Are you just going to keep standing there? Jungkook swallowed hard. I didn't want to bother you. You're not bothering me, she said, surprising them both. Come inside. His eyes widened. What? She tilted her head towards the bakery. Come inside, taste the cake. Jungkook hesitated. He didn't deserve this, didn't deserve her kindness after everything he had done. But Wyan had always been kind. And maybe, just maybe, she still had a small piece of that kindness left for him. The warmth of the bakery enveloped Jungkook as he stepped inside. It smelled like vanilla, cinnamon, and something else, home. Wyan placed a slice of cake in front of him. The same chocolate flavor she had made for their last anniversary. The one he had never come home for. Jungkook's hands trembled as he picked up the fork. He took a bite, and suddenly he was drowning in the memories. Memories of Wyan laughing in their kitchen, flower on her nose, memories of her waiting up for him. Eyes filled with love he never appreciated. Memories of the moment he destroyed everything. The cake melted on his tongue, but all he could taste was regret. Wyan sat across from him, watching him closely. It's good, right? Jungkook nodded, his throat tight. It's amazing. Silence stretched between them, and then Wayne spoke the word he never expected. We can be friends, Jungkook. His head snapped up, shock flashing across his face. Would you allow that? She nodded. We can't change the past, but I have moved on, and I see no reason why we can't at least be something. Jungkook exhaled shakily, his chest tightening. He didn't deserve her forgiveness. He knew that. But he was grateful that despite all the pain he had caused, Ryan is still the most beautiful, kind-hearted soul he had ever known. And even if he could no longer call her his, even if all he could ever be was her friend, he would cherish it with everything he had left. The fork trembled in Jungkook's grip. As he set it down, the taste of chocolate lingered on his tongue, but it was nothing compared to the weight of his chest. He lifted his gaze, meeting Ryan's steady eyes, calm, unreadable, and so painfully distant. He swallowed. His voice, when it finally came, was hoarse. Ryan, he hesitated, his finger clenched against the table. I am sorry. Ryan didn't react, not at first. She only tilted her head slightly, watching him with an expression he couldn't decipher. Jungkook felt his heart pounding. He had rehearsed this word in his head 1,000 times, but now that they were finally out, they felt so small, so meaningless compared to the wreckage he had left behind. I know that doesn't fix anything, he continued, his throat tightening, and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I needed to say it. I should have said it a long time ago. A soft breath escaped my lips. She glanced down at her hands, tracing the rim of a coffee cup with a contemplative silence. You're right, she said finally, her voice gentle but firm. It doesn't fix anything. Jungkook flinched. He had expected that, but hearing it still hurt. But she continued looking at him again. I appreciated his breath each. I spent so long waiting for that apology, Ryan admitted, a wistful smile tugging at her lips. Back then I thought hearing you say sorry would make all the pain disappear. That it would somehow make it easier to understand why you did what you did. She shook her head, exhaling. But time did that for me instead. Time and distance. Jungkook lowered his head, shame curling inside him. I was selfish, he whispered. I took you for granted. I had everything, your love, your trust, and I threw it away. I never stopped regretting that. Ryan watched him quietly. Then after a moment, she reached for her cup and took a slow sip. Regret is a heavy thing to carry, Jungkook, she said softly. Don't let it consume you. He looked up and stunned. I'm not saying I forgot what happened, she clarified, or that I will never let myself go through that kind of hurt again. She set her cup down. But I do think people can change. Jungkook's chest tightened. Ryan sighed, leaning back in her chair. I meant what I said. We can be friends, and if this is the closure you need to start healing, then take it. His finger curled against his jeans, his breathing uneven. Closure, healing. He had never thought he would deserve either, and yet here she was, offering him a piece of it. Jungkook nodded, his vision blurring just slightly.